Thank you very much, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear founders, dear guests, dear panelists. I feel really deeply honored to be here among you at the opening inauguration or presentation of university with an openly conservative approach. I think it's a unique treasure in this world today at a time when our once great admiration for the Anglo-Saxon type universities is, to tell the truth, fading. Unfortunately, news has reached us that European and American campuses no longer tolerate views that are in opposition to the mainstream, that lecturers who refuse to conform to the dogma of the liberal power elites are no longer welcome in the hallowed halls of Western academia. We know this phenomenon well. Poles and Hungarians have had the misfortune of experiencing totalitarianism in higher education as well for 4 decades. We want none of it ever again. Thus, please allow me, first and foremost of all, to thank our dear Polish friends and partners at Ordo Iuris for establishing this university, which can light the way for Europe, or at the very least, Central Europe. The word conservative sounds like an obscenity to the ears of the dark horsemen of progression, but they also call God old and obsolete, and yet the future belongs to him. Dear friends, despite the coronavirus pandemic, the debate regarding the future of Europe rages on. In certain sense, we have gathered here today as well to show Europe the way in our usual modest and moderate manner. And when we discuss the future of Europe, we mean not just the future geopolitical state of a continent or a legal entity, but we also engage in a debate over worldviews, beliefs, and lifestyles. What we mean by evil and good. What are those values that we cherish, that we hope our children and grandchildren will adopt as their own? In my opinion, this debate over the future, like a coin, has 2 sides in the 21st century. One side, the one that the liberals are describing as the only acceptable way forward, claims that we can move towards the idealistic or rather utopian, rather dystopian version of a real Europe by stepping over or setting aside the grandiose notions of the founding fathers regarding a European community based on a cooperation of sovereign states. They want to transcend the Europe of yesterday, the Europe you and I know and love, and they want to impose liberal values on all of society, on all our societies. Their buzzwords are communistic equality, nihilism, convenience, and virtue signaling from the comfort of their couches. Concepts like faith, God, family, common sense, normality, success, and authority are simply incomprehensible in the so-called postmodern political context that is their element. They have even twisted the notion of community beyond all recognition. Or, what is even worse, if they do recognize these ideas, they have become meaningless for them, so they can simply be set aside. The other side of the coin, one that in my opinion is crystal clear in setting out the way forward for Central Europe, is a struggle for Christian freedom. Those of us who follow this school of thought want a better and freer Europe and reject the deeper but less meaningful integration advanced by the other side. We believe that the future of Europe is a matter for the heart as well as the mind. We choose national independence over foreign occupation, community and family over individualism, a market economy over central planning, subsidiarity over centralization, and the protection of natural rights over wish fulfillment. However, we must be honest with ourselves as well. Perhaps we too have made a mistake, one that we should be able to learn from. Having awakened from the hibernation imposed upon our nations by the Iron Curtain, we assumed that, in a very positive sense, of course, time hasn't changed the West. In our mind's eye, we saw a Europe that recognized the fair value of work, the dignity of nations, where a husband had a wife had a husband. A Europe where even atheists were Christians, as our first democratically elected Prime Minister, Mr. Antal József, put it in Hungary. But by now, it has become clear that this approach was too idealistic a view. In reality, the constant search for compromise, the centrality of it to European politics, value neutrality, the constant bending over backwards to be inclusive and accepting towards anything that was outside the normal have all led to a point where Europe has become empty, and the soul of Europe has departed, or the Europe of spirit was lost. In its comfort and living the good life, the West has simply gone soft. Europe had tolerated everything to a point where its essence evaporated. It evaporated because Europe rejected and denied God. It declared the nation obsolete, and in the name of political correctness, it declared war on reason and the family. And Europe, let's be honest, has also lost its cultural core. The most obvious sign of this is that its official values have become an ideological deadwood, even as the Union itself has become a phalanstery-like technostructure of institutions run by namely neutral bureaucrats. The silver lining is that on this side of the continent, in this region, paradoxically, in no small way, thanks to all the difficulties and tragedies we faced throughout the decades-long suffering under the yoke of dictatorships, we have grown stronger. We have grown accustomed to attempts to silence us, to push us underwater completely. What we have worked for. We have rebuilt our nations again and again. We have fought and died for our homelands. But thanks to all of that, we are aware of what we have, we know what we have to lose, and we realize that Europe, which means all of us, is worth fighting for. We are certain that there are several ways to save the shared European project and the shared European classical values. Yes, because Europe is a shared cause, but not a global cause. For this reason, nobody should stay on the fence as we decide which way forward for our shared continent. Will we go in a direction that we choose together, or in a globalist direction imposed from above? Dear ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today to discuss if our postmodern world has a place for classical values. My position, how I propose to start this debate, is yes. Moreover, I submit that there is a great need for classical values today. We need to stand firmly by normality. We need the triune rallying cry of God, homeland, family, which not only frames our lives, but offers an avenue of escape from the nihilistic, lazy-like culture professed by the Western political elites. I believe that we simply call the ideal of Christian freedom, what we simply call the ideal of Christian freedom, can be of great benefit to us in this struggle. Christian freedom does not see the individual as opposed to society in our understanding, or at least in my understanding. The genuine fulfillment of the individual is when he willingly subordinates himself to others, the family, the father, the mother, the grandparents, the children, the university campus, the nation, as a natural part of a greater community. And we must be reminded that we ourselves are Europe. To put it another way, what is left of Europe can be found only in Central Europe. There is an energy here that can still resist the non-Europe of today. Because this region shares not just the experience of recently regained sovereignty, but also a historical past and common existential situations that arise from shared geography. And finally, allow me to quote one of the most significant and well-known persons in Hungarian politics, Count István Széchenyi, whom we often refer to as the greatest of Hungarians. He once said, "It all depends on us, but we must remain determined." If one of the greatest political thinkers of Hungarian history says so, I must believe him. I wish for all of us that as we protect our achievements and what we are creating now, we remain determined and show courage in the face of adversity. Together we stand, divided we fall. Thank you for your attention.